Welcome to the Chrisman Commentary, daily mortgage news podcast. I'm your host, Robbie Chrisman. Topics on today's episode include ARM volume, my interview with HomeLight's Sumant Sridharan on the latest surveyed trends among real estate agents a year after the NAR settlement and how technology is shaping their interactions with both lenders and borrowers, in reaction to yesterday's benign CPI readings. Thanks to today's podcast sponsor, ICE. ICE has and continues to transform the housing finance and homeownership experience. By seamlessly integrating best-in-class solutions, ICE optimizes every stage of the loan's lifecycle. As the standard for innovation, artificial intelligence, efficiency, and scalability, ICE is the technology of choice for the majority of industry participants, defining the future of homeownership. Learn more at mortgagetech.ice.com. Banks and credit unions do their share of adjustable rate mortgages, so may be okay with lower short-term rates via the Fed and stable long-term rates. Last week's MBA application data reflects increasing ARMs. Given the relative attractiveness of ARM rates compared to fixed-rate loans, ARM applications increased 25% to their highest levels since 2022, and the ARM share of all applications was almost 10%. The refinance share of mortgage activity increased to 46.5% of total applications from 41.5% the previous week. The ARM share of activity increased to 9.6% of total applications. There's more chatter than just that here in the hallways of Western Secondary. Attorney Mitch Keider reminded the audience during his session yesterday that we'll see less supervision and enforcement from the CFPB. The Consumer Finance Protection Bureau has undergone drastic changes, having its effective workforce cut by 90%, its funding reduced, and no nominee for director. It's dismissed many of its enforcement actions and withdrawn rules and requirements. Mr. Keider believes that the top priorities going forward will include mortgages, data furnishing and accuracy under FCRA, fraudulent overcharges and fees, and data security. But nature and regulators abhor a vacuum, and states are stepping up. They have many tools to pursue the same types of violations. Some states are enacting new laws that go beyond federal protection. Recent areas of state focus include artificial intelligence, trigger leads, cybersecurity, and junk fees. Switching gears again, the July Consumer Price Index report understandably dominated headlines yesterday, and it presented a mixed picture, showing that while overall inflation, which rose 0.2% month over month, printed roughly in line with expectations, hotter than anticipated core inflation, which rose 0.3% month over month, will add some complexity to the Federal Reserve's decision-making process. One concerning trend for the Fed is the modest but notable rise in prices for services excluding energy and housing, which are considered sticky and a key indicator of underlying inflation. Overall, this relatively benign report suggests that future jobs reports will be the primary factor influencing whether the Fed cuts interest rates in September. Markets are now pricing in about 90% odds of a Fed rate cut on September 17th, impacting short-term rates, up from about 80% before CPI was released. With the September rate cut essentially fully priced in, investors' attention now turns to how the Fed will approach its October and December meetings in the event that the trend of softer employment and benign inflation continues. For today's interview, I wanted to welcome to the show HomeLight's Sumant Sridharan to talk about the latest surveyed trends among real estate agents a year after the NAR settlement and how technology is shaping their interactions with both lenders and borrowers. He's COO of HomeLight and previously served as the president of Cafe Press, helping take the company public in 2012. Over the last 20 years, he's held various leadership positions in general management, product, and marketing at leading consumer internet companies. We're here to talk about HomeLight's Top Agent Insights AI Edition report for this year, which I'll put a link in the podcast description. It offers a look how AI and market trends are reshaping one of the most relationship-driven industries in the U.S. Before we get into some of the nitty and gritty, kind of high-level takeaways from the report, things that stuck out to you or trends or kind of how, let's set the stage for listeners here.
Yeah, for sure. Robbie, we interviewed roughly 400 of the top agents in the country and asked them about their opinions regarding, how AI is impacting their lives. And, Yeah, I think there's a few things that were, specifically I found to be interesting. So one, we all know, real estate agents don't tend to be early technology adopters. And I think the first thing we found just incredibly surprising is in the case of AI, they're not just adopting it, but over 80% of agents we interviewed have already used it and use it actively in their business. This is a group of folks, NAR made that major change to commission structure last year, and we've seen no movement in the industry on that. But with respect to AI, real estate agents are really adopting the technology. That was one, and then the counter to that was on the home buyer side. Only 14% of buyers are using AI actively, right? And that's also a bit surprising. And maybe what's less surprising is that the number one way that buyers are using AI is to get mortgage and lending advice, right? So not surprising, maybe because it's a complicated topic, and I think a lot of buyers are starting to use AI to understand more about kind of their options when it comes to financing their home. Overwhelmingly, agents seem to be using, and lenders seem to be using, ChatGPT as their predominant AI solution. So, over 80% use OpenAI or ChatGPT as their prominent AI solution, and then there's Gemini and Grok and a few others that agents are using, but there is a kind of winning solution here.
Yeah, it's almost a double-edged sword when I look at it, where I would think, okay, all these productivity tools for agents or for originators out there should make you more efficient, should free you up for more relationship building or advice and counsel that you could give borrowers. But borrowers are also getting a lot of their advice now from technology. So I'm wondering how you think this interplay will evolve over time to where agents and originators can really provide the most value to borrowers out there.
Yeah, it's so the number one, we asked agents what's the number one thing they fear about AI, and it's borrower and buyer misinformation, right? So they're really, we all have heard about AI hallucinating, and we've seen examples of that where a buyer will go to AI looking for information, and AI will just give them the wrong information, right? So that's a current fear that I think both agents and lenders have today. But in terms of how to adjust, our view on it is that the perfect marriage is an agent or a lender that marries really efficient AI usage with extremely high human touch. So we don't believe the human touch portion of it goes away, but the most effective professionals in the space are using AI to deliver information and processes in real time to their customers.
Yeah, there's that old phrase, trust but verify. I would almost say with AI at this point, it's verify before you trust. And so I'm wondering kind of better practices for people leveraging AI at the same time as getting to the right final place of information. And maybe there's some stuff from the report that could help out with this in terms of how do we get to a place where these things can work more synergistically.
I would separate the conversation into kind of two components. There's one is education and advice, and that's kind of a major like topic area. The second one is efficiency, right? So where we're seeing a very logical use of AI, and we're using it today with our buy before you sell product, is in terms of making loan officers, making agents more efficient. So think about things like real-time doc verification, automated risk scoring. We're able to, now run instant approvals on our buy before you sell product in minutes. This used to take days, right? And so we're able to get the timing down and the accuracy down on the transaction side. And that's really important, right? You have a buyer who's ready to make an offer and they have a contingency. And if we're able to remove that offer within hours versus days, that can make the difference between a winning deal and a losing deal. Now, in the other bucket, which is education and advice, if I'm a loan officer, I'm an agent, everyone's looking at chatbots and ways to communicate data to their customers. But agreed, right now you can't trust the data fully, and it's really up to the loan officer to allow customers to do their own exploration, but be the final say on how the customer should move forward.
Yeah, and maybe to get back to the report a little bit here, I think it addressed some of what the next phases of adoption. How do you see this evolving going into the future in terms of the interaction between people and technology?
Agents today and lenders, what we see is that most of their usage is around marketing, right? So these are things like creating listing descriptions, creating marketing materials, creating email templates. So most of the way people are using AI today is really designed to help them with how to market to their customers, right? And so I think the really kind of savvy folks in this field are going to move toward more sophisticated uses of AI. So, for example, we believe voice AI, which is only used currently by 3% of real estate professionals, is going to be one of the fastest growing areas in real estate. So now, if you're able to source customers and talk to many more customers using an AI robot. And by the way, at HomeLight, we do this already. We make over 1 million calls a day using voice AI. That's very powerful in your ability to find customers and convert customers.
Let's talk about the market right now. And when I read through the report, it almost gives me the sense that we're shifting from a seller's market to a buyer's market. We saw price cuts, we see seller concessions rising, and obviously this is very metro specific in terms, somewhere in Florida might be doing a lot worse than somewhere in the Northeast or something like that. But what are you seeing in terms of shifting trends that people might be interested in hearing about with real estate?
Yeah, so I think, as we all know, your audience will know this as well as anyone. Over 80% of agents today believe it's a buyer's market. That number was flipped, in reverse a couple of years ago. The markets we're seeing the biggest softness in are the West, Texas, Southeast, Florida. The markets that are showing more strength are Midwest and the Northeast. They're incrementally more sellers markets, but everywhere is turning toward buyer. And the number one issue currently is just persistently high interest rates, and we'll see what happens next quarter. But yeah, we're seeing price reductions in almost every market.
I'll put in a call to my friends at Fannie and the Fed and see if we get lower interest rates for people. It does seem like there's so much pent up demand out there. It'd be nice if some of it could be.
Yeah, I mean, listing inventory is at its highest since, I believe, 2012, which was just after the Great Recession. And so the good news is, I use the analogy of it's like a dam, and at some point the dam's got to break. And so if you're able to kind of bide your time and be patient, I think those people will do well.
Yeah. I mean, you lead the HomeLight's AI product development, and obviously you're at a neat nexus of different parts of the real estate process. What are you focused on? How are you winning business? What's important to your clients, customers out there?
So we've spent the last year on this journey, Robbie, which is, how do we change our entire mindset so we're AI first? So if we were building HomeLight's been around for over 10 years. If we were building HomeLight today, what decisions would we make based on this new AI-centric world? And I would encourage everyone to think like that. So we're looking at every job function and saying, how can we improve that job function by bringing AI to it? And we're also thinking about our primary customers, which is really our lender and agent partners, and saying, how can we bring AI to their lives to make it better, right? And so that's kind of the transition we've been making. So what's interesting is that in a era where we used to be more sales driven, we've definitely become more product driven in our thinking, and that's resulting in some pretty incredible gains on the engineering side.
And then I guess I'll close by asking how, with technology evolving so rapidly, whether it's y'all at HomeLight, whether it's realtors, whether it's originate, how do people stay on top of the ever shifting landscape? How do they kind of ride the wave and stay in front of it versus getting swallowed up by it?
I think the first thing is to accept that whatever you think today is going to be completely different in 3 months. So whatever you're building today, you're probably going to throw away and rebuild in 3 months, right? But that's an important realization, right? Because then you get in this mode of, I need to be an infinite learner, and I need to keep just myself updated, go to conferences, read newsletters. There's just an incredible amount of information anywhere you go, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatnot. I tend to find Twitter to be really useful for AI content. That's where, kind of a lot of new AI innovation tends to break first. But just making it a habit to read all of those things, and then also figuring out and talking to other top performers in your industry of how they're actually using AI to be successful. And there's one thing to keep in mind here: AI will democratize this industry, right? What that means is, if you're a small and nimble lender or small and nimble agent, and you're able to effectively harness AI, you can act like a much bigger agent or a much bigger lender. So there's an opportunity here for someone who's just starting to build their business to accelerate 10 times more rapidly than they would have been, last year or 2 years ago. And that should be really exciting for that group of people.
Certainly is an exciting time. It's neat to see not only how you have your finger on the pulse, but you're also kind of pulling some strings there, and you're very attuned to what's going on. So I appreciate you making the time for me, Sumant, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show.
Of course. Thanks. Take care.
Mortgage rates and prices are set by supply and demand. Few investors want to own loans on properties whose value is declining, and Fitch reports that U.S. home prices were 10.5% overvalued in the first quarter of 2025, down slightly from 11% the prior quarter, as higher personal incomes and lower unemployment lifted sustainable price estimates, while other factors like rents and mortgage rates remain steady. Despite the moderation, Fitch reports that 86% of metro areas remain overvalued, with more than half overpriced by 10% or more. These metros were led by Buffalo, New York, Rochester, New York, and McAllen, Texas. Fitch projects national home price growth to slow to 1.5% to 3.5% in 2025, from 4% in 2024. The forecast also calls for mortgage rates to end 2025 between 6.3 and 6.7%, before easing further in 2026, which could potentially boost refinancing and improve affordability late next year. Today's economic calendar kicked off with mortgage applications increasing 10.9% from 1 week earlier, according to data from the Mortgage Bankers Association's weekly mortgage application survey. Unless you care about the EIA weekly petroleum status report, I don't, the rest of the calendar is about Treasury and Fed speakers. Treasury activity will be headlined by a buyback for liquidity purposes and 7.5-year to 30-year tips for up to $500 million. And we're scheduled to receive remarks from Richmond President Barkin, Chicago President Goolsbee, and Atlanta President Bostic. Corporate earnings also continue from Wall Street. We begin the day with agency MBS prices nearly an eighth better than Tuesday's close, the 2-year yielding 3.71, and the 10-year yielding 4.25 after closing yesterday at 4.29%. Let's wrap up with a joke and some housekeeping. The headlines here in Los Angeles blared, "New California Department." To save money, California is combining the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Highway Patrol. The new department is called the Department of Fish and Chips. Thanks again to ICE for sponsoring today's podcast. By seamlessly integrating best-in-class solutions, ICE optimizes every stage of the loan life cycle, setting the standard for innovation, artificial intelligence, efficiency, and scalability, and defining the future of homeownership.